If US tariffs are just going to raise the cost of US goods for US buyers, then why is Canada threatening to raise its own tariffs? Canada's tariffs target US goods, making them less competitive in Canada, offsetting the US advantage. The last time Cheeto did this, Canada immediately signed up to the PTP, the Pacific Trading Pact, to get cheaper goods from not the USA. What Americans need to realize about America: we are in a trade deficit with every other country, which means we buy more things from other countries than they buy from us. Simply, we quit making shit that people want to buy. The world trade system is skewed towards China's cheap labor. So to get around the tariffs that Trump put into place, China is now sending raw materials to Mexico, where the material is made into whatever product they are selling, and now it's stamped made into Mexico. Canadian producers want to sell their goods to Americans. That will be harder if the goods are more expensive because of the tariffs. People will buy less of the product or buy competing products not subject to the tariff. They are threatening to do the same in return because American producers also want to sell to Canadians. You are looking at short-term effects. A slightly longer-term effect, if tariffs hold, is the goods that are now more competitive thanks to their competition having similar or lower costs now make more sales, are able to hire more US citizens, and thus increase the total market size by virtue of adding more bodies that can afford to buy. Longer term than that, you get the current US good industry that may not even exist if the US didn't have so many subsidies. So I don't tend to like this solution for long term, but for short term purposes for negotiation it is fine. It's called a trade war. Both sides lose export sales. Canada should probably just sit back and watch Americans scream about the cost of bacon and paper products. Because when a tariff is enacted, it increases the price of the good or goods from that country. Increased price means less people buy it or less demand. So people buy less Canadian goods and GDP dips. But trade works both ways. So Canada enacts a retaliatory tariff against the US, increasing the price of US goods, lowering demand and lowering the US GDP. This hurts both countries. But retaliatory tariffs are needed because while this hurts both countries, if the tariffs aren't enacted by Canada, then US goods will be cheaper to import than domestically produced goods, which will do more damage to Canadian production than the tariffs will. Because then Canadians would buy less US goods, reducing the US economy. It is a game no one wins, like nuclear war. But if nukes are coming for you, you may as well send some back. Canada would be buying more good from other countries like Mexico and China if US goods prices increase. Tariffs cause harm to the target country, that's the whole point. Canada is the US's largest trading partner, and both countries cherish their relationship and have long-standing trade gripes about each other. Retaliatory tariffs are probably the only way Canada can defend itself from the Trump admin imposing tariffs. If you say, why would Canada impose tariffs? It would only hurt Canada. Well, then why would the US impose tariffs? Wouldn't that just hurt the US? You noted that tariffs do two things in the US, but only looked at one of them for Canada. I think your answer lies in the other. Yes, it would raise prices in Canada, but it will help protect industries targeted by US tariffs. It's you punch me, and I punch you back. You raise on goods your country produces to make them more attractive price-wise, and on products you don't produce to encourage business to make the product in your country to bypass tariff to compete locally. If the US imposes tariff on Canada's lumber, it would make US companies outsource lumber from another country. Since the demand for Canadian lumber decreased, companies would lay off employees, hurting the economy. Canada would return the favor by imposing tariff on US goods, causing the same effect. Tariffs make foreign goods more expensive. This hurts foreign business, so that foreign country is likely to retaliate and hurt US businesses. Part of what makes tariffs such a terrible idea is the retaliatory tariffs others are forced to raise as a consequence. It makes everything just so much worse. Tariffs are already costly to an economy. The fact that the other side of the trade agreement will also raise their own retaliatory tariffs in response compounds that problem. Part of what makes tariffs such a terrible idea is the retaliatory tariffs others are forced to raise as a consequence. It makes everything just so much worse. Tariffs are already costly to an economy. The fact that the other side of the trade agreement will also raise their own retaliatory tariffs in response compounds that problem. People act as if tariffs only cost the American consumer. But that's not true. Foreign sellers have it harder to compete with American sellers. That wouldn't matter if they could just sell it elsewhere, but that's usually not the case. Also, Canadian manufacturers probably can't make stuff significantly cheaper than Americans, so those tariffs will make a difference. I think it's almost something they have to do, if for nothing more than making an attempt to get the US to rethink their tariffs. I'm not sure how effective it would be for Canada, though I have no direct knowledge, but I have to assume Canada imports a lot more from the US than the US imports from Canada. It depends on the market. If you tariff an industry with a domestic supply that can accommodate increases demand, you can mitigate the effects. Because tariffs benefit the manufacturers in the country issuing the tariff, since it makes the target country's products more expensive than the issuing country's products,